I'm Jill Reynolds, and I was a research intern at Force Pharmaceuticals when all this happened. 3 months into my internship, our boss Marcus announced he was treating the intern team to a ski weekend at Pinewood Lodge, this supposedly luxury bed and breakfast near Mount Hollow. We'd been working overtime on a special project for one of their new products, a cognitive enhancement drug called Cortex Plus, and apparently we deserved a break. Yeah, right. So that's how the four of us, me, Tyler, Ava, and Devin, ended up packed into Tyler's RAV4 on a snowy Friday afternoon. We watched as flurries gradually turned into heavy clumps that made the windshield wipers struggle just to keep up. Ava hadn't looked up from her phone since we started the 3-hour drive. When she finally asked how much longer, I told her about 30 minutes, but warned that we'd lose cell service soon. I'd downloaded a map ahead of time. Being the research intern meant I was always prepared for everything. Well, almost everything. As I gazed out the window, I realized how psyched I was for this weekend. The truth is, I didn't have friends, unless you counted my Siamese cat, Tartar Sauce. So I liked that going on a weekend trip with the other interns qualified as a hangout, which meant I could definitely count them as friends now, and it'd be legit. There was a bag of Jolly Ranchers in the cup holder. I reached for one, unwrapped it, and put it in my mouth for a second before I spit it into my palm. Cherry. I've never understood how anyone could stand that fake cherry flavor. It tastes like medicine, not fruit. Tyler offered me a green apple one instead. I took it and folded the cherry one in the green apple wrapper, tucking it into my pocket to throw away later. Tyler said that was gross and I should just throw it out the window, but I don't like to litter. My thoughts drifted to the skiing we'd be doing tomorrow. I didn't know how, so I'd be on the bunny slope, but that was okay. The trip was already an adventure. I'd never stayed anywhere without internet before, and I kinda liked needing to use the map to navigate the last few miles to the lodge, instead of relying on GPS. It felt like we were on a treasure hunt. Plus, no phones meant we couldn't get constant texts from our boss Marcus about clinical trial results and competitor analytics. I swear sometimes I couldn't believe we were doing all this work for free. I mean, the college credit's nice, and it would look good on our resumes, but the stuff we were expected to do at Force was way more intense than most of the other internships I heard about, where they mostly just made a couple social media posts and went on coffee runs. I guess we were so busy because the Cortex Plus drug trial was the center of the universe at Force Pharmaceuticals. It was a prescription cognitive enhancement drug for patients with memory and focus issues. If approved, it would put our startup on the pharmaceutical map. He pointed through the thickening snow to a large Victorian structure appearing through the trees. Pinewood Lodge loomed ahead, all dark wood and gabled windows. There's lights on, but the parking lot's empty. Devin offered to carry my bag inside. He interns in the finance department. He's nice, but also kind of a weird guy. I guess I shouldn't judge since I'm pretty socially awkward too. I let him carry my bag, and the four of us trudged through the ankle-deep snow to the wraparound porch. I don't know the etiquette at these places, so I knocked. Ava laughed and said, "We're not trick-or-treating. You just go in." The door wasn't locked, so I guess she was right. "Hello?" I called out, stepping into a grand foyer with a central staircase, thick rugs, and old paintings. Exactly what you'd expect from a historic B&B. But no one responded. There didn't seem to be an innkeeper, or any other guests, which seemed odd, especially because it was ski season. Ava suggested the owners might be in town getting supplies before the storm hit. She was looking for a reasonable explanation. Devin wandered off to explore the place while we were talking about where everyone might be. When he called out from another room, we all followed his voice to the kitchen. It was a huge restaurant-sized kitchen. Devin had the fridge door open. It was well stocked with cartons of eggs, yogurt, blueberries, and a whole bunch of cans with a silver logo and the name Hawk Energy. I'd never heard of it. Tyler grabbed one right away, saying he was thirsty from the drive. Ava took one too and started checking out the design. She likes analyzing marketing stuff like that. Devin was already reading the ingredients list and got excited about something called synaptium complex. He said it sounded scientific, which for Devin is basically a compliment. I reached for a can too, but then noticed they were cherry flavored. Like I said, I hate that fake cherry taste. I rummaged around for other flavors, but nope, all cherry. I took a sip anyway. It was gross, just like I expected. Tyler chugged his and made a face. Not disgusted, more like that meme with the girl who can't decide if she likes kombucha. When Ava asked if it was good, he couldn't explain it. Just said you have to try it yourself. I left them with their drinks and looked around the rest of the ground floor. Nobody was around, but everything was super clean. Fresh towels, stocked firewood, no dust anywhere. Someone had definitely prepared for guests. They just weren't here. When I got back, my coworkers were making themselves at home, raiding the pantry for chips and salsa. They sat at a table in the dining room in front of a picture window. You could barely make out the woods behind the lodge through the thick sheet of falling snow. I told the group I was going to have a look around the property, try finding the owners. Ava looked at me like I was crazy and told me to relax. I ignored her, grabbed my coat, and went outside anyway. I was getting pissed off. The empty inn was creeping me out, but no one else seemed to care. To me, this seemed like the start of a Saw movie, but they're in there acting like it's happy hour at Chili's. It occurred to me that this could be why I struggle to make friends. The trip just started, and I'm already anxious. I took a few deep breaths, slowing my heart rate, as I stood on the porch, watching the snow come down quietly. The temperature was dropping fast. I shoved my icy fingers in my pockets. That's when the wind picked up, blasting me with ice crystals that stung my face. I couldn't see our car at all, even though it was parked just 10 feet away. I came outside to scope out the property, but whatever I thought I might find out there would have to wait. I wasn't about to become one of those idiots in horror movies who freeze to death trying to be a hero. Back inside, shaking off snow, I found the others in the living room. Ava and Tyler were playing chess and sipping hog, while Devin stared at a painting on the wall. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Did you know this artwork contains exactly 1,548 individual brush strokes? I can see each one." I just nodded thinking, sure bro. The guy once spent an entire lunch break explaining why ketchup has a umami flavor. Still, counting individual brush strokes seems extreme even for Devin. Being the new chill Jill I decided I was 5 minutes ago on the porch, I shrugged it off and went to sit with Ava and Tyler at the chess table. Looking back, I should have realized something was off about all of them. At the chess table, Ava moved her knight, then immediately moved it back. No, there's a better move. Actually, I can see 17 steps ahead. Tyler's eyes were on the bookshelf. It's crazy that 85% of those books are authored by someone whose name starts with the letter A, D, and S, isn't it? And he was dead serious about it. Ava shushed him, insisting she heard whispers coming up through the floorboards. What the hell? Maybe tonight's not the best time to activate Chill Jill after all. I'm already freaking out because of the storm and the empty inn, and now the other interns seem like they're on something. I glance at the cans of Hawk. Maybe there's too much caffeine or whatever they use to put in Four Loko. I don't even know where to start with that, so I put my attention back on what seems like the most important issue right now. Guys, don't you think it's weird that no one's in here? And the car's totally snowed in? We're trapped? I suggested calling someone to let them know we'd arrived safely, but Ava reminded me there was no cell service. When I asked about a landline, Devin said he'd already checked it and it didn't work. A loud crash from upstairs cut him off. Everyone froze. I pointed out that someone might be here after all. Tyler decided we should investigate. I didn't exactly want to wander around the strange house during a snowstorm, but it didn't seem like we had a choice. We crept up the creaky staircase to a long, dark hallway lined with closed doors. Another crash sounded from the far end. Tyler called out, but got no answer. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm outside. At this point, I'm not worried. I'm terrified. Another crash. We moved toward the sound, passing rooms with brass numbers on the doors. At the end of the hall, the door to room 4 was slightly open. Tyler's hand shook as he cautiously pushed it, and we all peered inside. A broken lamp lay on the floor. Curtains danced wildly, and an open window let in heaping gusts of snow piling up on the bed. I thought of the scene in Salem's Lot where the vampire boy floats through the window, scratching at the glass and whispering to be let in. Ava let out a relieved breath when she realized no one was there, but I was still on edge. Who leaves a window wide open in the middle of winter during a snowstorm? While I was thinking this, Devin was already crouched down examining the lamp pieces like a CSI detective. Tyler joined him, saying he could read code hidden within the ceramic shards. We're all geeks, but this was next level. Again, I wondered if there was something strange in that energy drink. Ava and I closed the window together, fighting against the wind. As I was latching it shut, I spotted something moving outside. A dark figure, marching through the snow, heading toward the front of the lodge. Maybe he was here to help. But what if he wasn't? I told everyone someone was coming, and we all rushed back downstairs. Just as we reached the bottom step, we heard knocking at the front door. 3 loud, hard knocks, then a pause, then 3 more. We all just looked at each other for a second. Ava asked if we should answer. Tyler immediately decided yes. He thought it was the innkeeper finally showing up. I tried to stop him. Why would the innkeeper knock on his own door? But Tyler was already turning the knob. A man stood on the porch, a dusting of snow lightly covering his coat, backpack, and beanie. He acted super relieved to see us, brushing snow off his shoulders while explaining that his car had slid off the road about a mile back. I couldn't believe it, but Tyler invited him in without even thinking twice. The stranger wore glasses, and as he took off his coat, I got a good look at his build. He was in good shape, and I immediately pegged him as a fitness nerd. The kind of guy who weighs and measures his food, trains with percentages, and has one of those watches that tracks his sleep. The guy introduced himself as Dr. Neil Simon, supposedly on his way to some conference when he got caught in the storm. But that didn't seem right. For someone who supposedly walked a mile through a blizzard, his clothes were almost dry. I pointed this out, asking how he'd walked all this way in these conditions. He laughed it off, saying he had no choice with no cell service around. Tyler offered him a drink. Dr. Simon glanced at the hawk cans and asked for a water, saying Red Bull and that kind of stuff keeps him up all night. Devin started going on about how this drink was nothing like Red Bull, how he thought it was helping him see details he'd never noticed before. The stranger sipped his water and asked what brought us to the lodge. Tyler went in about how we worked at Force Pharmaceuticals and were on a company retreat. I shot him a look that said, "Shut up," but the damage was done. Why would you tell a complete stranger where you work? I wanted to duct tape his mouth shut. What really set off alarms was how Dr. Simon reacted. His eyebrows went up when Tyler mentioned Force, and he said he'd heard of it, but our startup wasn't famous enough for a random doctor to recognize our company name like that. When I asked how he knew about Force, he claimed he read scientific journals. As the night went on, things got weirder. My co-workers were changing right before my eyes. Devin started covering napkins with crazy Good Will Hunting equations. Ava went into some kind of decorating frenzy, moving furniture around the living room, saying she was optimizing the room's flow dynamics, whatever that meant. The weirdest was Tyler, who actually took apart the grandfather clock in the corner and put it back together, just because he suddenly felt like he needed to understand how it worked. The whole time they kept drinking more of those Hawk energy drinks. But after a while, I realized it was something else. He was studying them, taking mental notes, the way a scientist watches lab rats. I pretended to be tired and stuck to drinking water, keeping to myself. By midnight, I was the only one who could hold a normal conversation. The other interns were deep in their bizarre obsessions. When I went to refill my water bottle, Dr. Simon cornered me. He noticed I wasn't drinking the energy drinks, and I lied, saying I had one earlier. His eyes got all narrow and calculating when I said that. Then he dropped something that made my blood run cold. He called me the research intern and the detailed one. But I never even mentioned what department I worked in at Force. When I asked how he knew that, a massive clap of thunder shook the whole house, and the lights flickered before cutting out completely. We were plunged into darkness. Someone screamed, probably Ava, and almost instantly, there was a beam of light cutting through the darkness. Dr. Simon had a flashlight he'd taken out of his backpack. Too convenient. I didn't trust this guy at all. I hurried back to the sitting room. In the dim light, my friends' faces looked high. Their pupils were huge, and they were sweating, even though it was getting cold inside now that the heat was off. Dr. Simon moved around the room, shining his light on each of them, studying their reactions. I decided to check the circuit breaker. I felt vulnerable in the dark and wanted the lights back on. Dr. Simon immediately offered to come with me. I refused, grabbing a lantern from the kitchen pantry instead, and heading to the basement alone. I didn't care if I was being rude. There was no way I was going to be alone with him. The door to the basement was next to the laundry room. I hate basements just like everyone else who saw a cabin in the woods, but I preferred a possibly haunted basement over that creep Simon right now. The electrical panel was easy to find, but flipping the switches did nothing. I took a few deep breaths just like I had on the porch earlier. Being alone gave me time to think. Why was Simon more interested in the interns than the fact that no one works at this place? That the inn was unlocked with the lights on but no sign of anyone? That the power's off and we could freeze to death? He didn't seem concerned about any of that, but why? I had to confront him. I stomped back upstairs and stood in front of the stranger. I demanded to know why he was here and if he knew what was happening to the others. He tried to brush off their obsessive behavior as anxiety from the storm. I called him out, saying it all started after they drank those energy drinks, the ones he refused to try. And you're not even wet from walking through a blizzard, I pointed out. You knew about Force Pharmaceuticals and that I'm the research intern without me telling you. The interns stopped what they were doing, the fog clearing a bit as they tuned into our conversation. That's when everything changed. Dr. Simon sighed, and without any warning, he pulled out a satellite phone from his backpack, the kind the military use. He spoke into it like this was totally normal. Subject 4 is maintaining clarity despite environmental triggers. Subjects 1 through 3 are displaying rapidly escalating progression through stages 1 and 2. A voice crackled back through the static. Problems detected. Continue monitoring. A disturbing Kaiser Sose type plot was unraveling in front of me. You work for Force, I said, suddenly seeing the whole picture. This whole thing is a setup. The empty bed and breakfast, the energy drinks, all of it. Simon nodded. He said my observational skills were exactly why I was selected. It sent chills down my spine. When Ava demanded to know what he meant by selected, I figured it out before he could answer. The Hawk drinks were in some random energy drink. They were Cortex Plus, repackaged for regular consumers. Simon confirmed it, saying the company realized they could make more money selling brain boosters at the gas station than selling prescription medicine to patients. When Ava pointed out that drugging people without consent was illegal, Simon had an answer ready. He explained Marcus and his underlings were testing it on employees first. Apparently paperwork we signed as interns included NDAs and liability waivers that gave them consent for product testing. Tyler demanded to know when it would wear off. Simon checked his watch like he was timing us and said the main effects would last 12 to 14 hours. When I asked what happened after that, he claimed we'd be extracted from the inn and offered permanent jobs on the Hawk team with significant compensation, but I didn't trust anything that lunatic said at this point. When I pushed him on what would happen if the trial wasn't successful, I mean, obviously the side effects we'd seen all night weren't anticipated, Simon shrugged. For the next few hours, Simon kept calling reports on his satellite phone. He seemed so cocky when we caught onto his plan, but I could see worry creeping into his face as my friends got worse instead of better. Devin stopped talking completely, just drawing endless patterns. I stayed awake, watching everyone, looking for any chance to get us out of this nightmare. When dawn finally came, Simon's phone pinged with a message. When he read it, all the blood drained from his face. I demanded to know what was happening. The fear in his eyes was real when he said, "They're shutting down the project." He showed me the message on his screen. It said the test results showed dangerous reactions and the project was terminated. The company was redirecting all their resources to cover their tracks. Dr. Simon was fired and no extraction team would be coming. But it got worse. Simon said they were cutting ties with all of us, not just him. The company didn't want to risk a lawsuit if anyone discovered what they'd done, so they were erasing any connection to us. Tyler said we'd wait for the storm to clear and drive ourselves out, but Simon crushed that hope immediately. The storm wouldn't clear for days, and Force had remotely disabled Tyler's RAV4 through its driver assistance program, making sure we couldn't escape. We were all stuck here, thrown away by Force to eliminate any evidence of their failed experiment. That's when we all heard it. 3 heavy knocks on the front door. Everyone went silent. Another 3 knocks, louder this time. Simon and I exchanged terrified glances. Who's out there? Was it help? Or something much worse?